D-U-N-C-A-N. I just wanted to reiterate a couple of the points about the legal side of this. The document is,
Speak up, please.
the document was created at the point of birth. It was a factual document that was recorded by all those who were witness to it, and they all signed the validity of it. To let anybody come in later and on a whim change that document and overwrite all the witnesses that were there at the scene at the time is ludicrous.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, just because of some bureaucrat in the office of, health and welfare comes up with a new rule and just said, we're gonna do it this way, anybody who's doing this should be charged with falsifying documents or altering legal documents. It wrecks the fabric and the validity of the vital statistics that are there. If we can change that, why do we just spend millions of dollars going through this whole, we have to redo our driver's license and show up with our birth certificate as the founding document proving who we are and where we were born? If we can go change that, then why did we just have all this other system put in place? And using that as the key document to prove who we are when we go down to the DMV.
Mm-hmm.
It's just out of control. I'd say just shut it down. And the 2018 law should be just null and void and not followed, because it's just out there in left field. So that's my opinion.
McGuire.
Hello, I'm Philip McGuire, McGuire. I came down here from Boundary County.
Louder.
I came down here from Boundary County, Bonners Ferry area. So I just wanted to talk about these rules. So you are born with you're either male or female, and some people may have maybe some of the other parts, but if you do other tests and more tests, you're either female or male. I believe this legislation is actually a threat to the female gender.
Mm-hmm.
It is, because then people people with male parts, I should say, would want to participate in female sports, which would give them an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And I also feel it's a threat to the safety of the future of my children, safety of my wife, because there's going to be these male people that identify as female, and I feel like my wife should have the right to carry an assault weapon just to protect herself, to use the bathroom. In order to change the gender on birth certificates of live birth, the person's gender identity needs to match with the gender reality.
Representative John Green.
I'm going to speak today from my own personal perspective, but through the eyes of having now spent a year in the legislature. First of all, it could take us a year. We still would not have enough hearing time for everybody to explain the reasons why this is such a bad idea. But I want to take a different tack. I have no idea why God allows some people to be afflicted with what, from a normal standpoint, we would call an anomaly. But this rule is not necessary. It's not necessary because we already have a mechanism in law to address these kind of concerns. Now, there are two kinds of legal birth certificate documents. And the legal decision makers in the state couldn't tell me which was which, but I'm going to describe them this way. There's the one that's the factual record of the birth. And there are three categories that a person may fall into. One would be male, one would be female, the other would be undetermined. I don't know what undetermined means, but that could be addressed at a later time. And it could be addressed through a court. There's already a mechanism in place. The real underlying issue for me is preserving the rule of law. I'm on the Health and Welfare Committee. I was not allowed to have a public hearing despite a request on this rule during the session of the legislature. Thankfully, with the cooperation of the government, we killed all of the rules, so now we're able to have some of these hearings. But the real issue is here, the purpose of the Health and Welfare Department is to carry out or fully implement those statutes that the legislature has imposed for the executive branch. And they don't get to make law. This is a ruling from a federal court. A federal court has there is no mechanism, legal or otherwise, for the federal court to insinuate itself in the sovereignty of the state of Idaho. Right. And our state officials in the executive branch need to tell the federal government, you will not interfere with the sovereignty of the state of Idaho.
Stevens.
Hi, I'm Tina Stevens, Coeur d'Alene, Stevens. As a former foster parent in the state of Idaho, I'm here for the children. And my concern is, if I am fostering a 12-year-old girl, and then in the middle of the night, I'm called by Health and Welfare, and they say, I have a 12-year-old girl that needs shelter right now. I bring that child in. I only have one bedroom. I put the two girls together, and I find out one of them is a biological male. What's going to happen to our foster care system? Are our foster parents going to say, I can only take one child, or else withdraw completely? This is not good for our most vulnerable citizens, which are our children. I'm concerned about many transgenders wanting to switch their gender from one day to the next. I understand the belief behind it, the feeling behind it, but can our government deal with that? Are we going to be switching birth certificates back and forth? As the director of Northwest Academy of Music for 25 years, overseeing education for thousands of children in our community, I know that as a vocal coach, I need to know if the vocal cords of the person are male or female. Because we could coach it incorrectly, I could end up with a lawsuit, and then pretty soon our 30-year-old business is no longer serving the citizens of our county, basically. My husband has done psychosocial rehabilitation for the state of Idaho. He's done foster care work in California and in North Idaho. And he has a mentoring ministry to disadvantaged youth. And his 40 years of experience says he believes that the vast majority of people suffering from gender issues have been sexually abused, and many of them have been abused before they can remember. So my advice to all of you is pray that the issues that are really there would come to the surface, and people would get the healing and the help they need. I think it was the Justice Scalia, before he died, said, "Beware America," that these changes we've had in our country in the last 15 years have resulted in this grand social experiment that goes against thousands of years of history. Thank you.
Ray Miller. Ray Miller.
You can read this as it Hardy or Hardy.
Oh, that's me.
Jay.
Sorry.
Sorry for butchering the name.
Micah.
Sorry.
Good morning. I'm Heike Jahnert, Heike Jahnet. And, you know, I'm just like this is crazy. Unelected bureaucrats rule over us now. They're unelected, and it's not just the health and welfare. It's with common care. You know, it is in the education.
Common Core.
Yeah, Common Core. It's everywhere. And I came to this country 30 years ago, and I thought, man, I'm coming to America, and it's free. And guess what? You guys are not free. It's slipping away. And you guys don't know because it's so sudden, you know? And so I've really noticed all these new amendments. You know, this is unelected bureaucrats. They are trying to change our society, and we have to stand up. Also, I noticed 20 years ago when they didn't say sex anymore, it went to gender. And people warned 20, 25 years ago. It's not going to stop there. There then will invent new genders. People warned 20, 25 years ago. It's sex. It always used to be sex. It's male or female. And now it's gender. Well, I can be whatever tomorrow. Also, you know what? Think about it. Big money is behind it. Transgender people need medical attention all their lives with the hormones and the doctor. It's big money is behind it. They want there's doctors behind it. So think about that too, and thank you for letting me speak.
Stacy Rodriguez.
Good morning. My name is Stacy Rodriguez, R-O-D-R-I-G-U-E-Z. Also a California refugee, and my career was as a deputy district attorney in San Diego County, and while there in that capacity, I prosecuted Butcher Brown and sent him to prison for the rest of his life for butchering transgender surgeries. Now, I don't know if Ms. Taylor is post-gender reassignment surgery or pre-operative, but I will tell you that I have watched the videos of how it's done by both a butcher and a legitimate surgeon, and it is not anything that anybody would want to see. It's a horrific experience. Now, according to the UCLA Law School, how many adults identify as transgender in the United States, that number was 0.58%. GLAAD put out a publication that said with the millennials, it might be as much as 3%. The point is that this thing that the department has done, first of all, it was sneaky. Yes. It was very sneaky, and it's overbroad and overreaching. I agree with Representative Green. It is unnecessary to change the birth document that we have, because at least at that point in someone's life, except for some genetic anomalies like hermaphrodites, and I should mention that in prosecuting Butcher Brown, I interviewed for over 8 months 235 transgender people. Some were legit, as they'd had the surgery by legitimate doctors, not Butcher Brown, and they were, except for 2, miserable with the life choice that they'd made over time. Because things just weren't working out. The physical wasn't matching the mental, no matter what they did. Fake boobs, estrogen injections if you're going male to female, a neo-vagina stuffed with a carpet pad to keep the space open because you don't have one. That causes people incredible pain. Do they need medical services? Absolutely. Should they have mental health services? Absolutely. Should they be able to change their gender on their birth certificate? I don't think so. As another speaker mentioned, it would eviscerate women's sports. It would eviscerate women's sports. Just go look at the pictures. The athletes now aren't even bothering to transition in any way. They're not getting breasts. They're not taking estrogen. They just come one day, okay, I lost as a guy. I'm going to compete on the girls' team. And you see these girls standing here, and then a guy. Let's say you transition at 26. You've still been a man for 26 years. And you have the musculature and all the development that you have into your body at that time. It will And that's why I can't understand why women aren't objecting more. Because there will, have you ever seen a marathoner beat a female beat a male? Have you ever seen, other than the rig thing with Bobby Riggs and Billie Jean King, a female ever beat a male in tennis, in any sport? Why are they sitting back, all these mothers of daughters, and saying, I don't care. Put the biological male on my daughter's team and let the women never win another sport. Thank you very much.
Kirsten LeBlanc.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to say to Alexandra, it does take incredible courage to be here.
Yes.
And we offer you our compassion, and I really hope that you are welcomed in churches around our nation and accepted for who you are. Having said that, I think changing sex on a birth certificate is a terrible idea. Specifically, I'd like to speak as a mother of daughters. I also have sons. Sex is a biological fact. No matter how one feels, individuals with XX chromosomes are female, and individuals with XY chromosomes are male. 0.017% of children born are known as intersex. That means that while they have an X or Y chromosome or an XX chromosome, there are physical indications that they might be both sexes, but they're not. They do have X or Y or XX chromosomes. As a biological female, I fear the identification of biological males as female will irreparably harm the achievements of females, specifically in athletics. Imagine a world in which biological females are no longer holding athletic records because biological males who identify as females outrun, outjump, outthrow, outlift, outswim, outperform them. Imagine a world in which adolescent and teenage girls suffer the embarrassment and invasion of privacy in locker rooms as teenage males who call themselves females disrobe, revealing external male organs. Girls who object to shared locker rooms will be vilified as hateful and bigoted. We are seeing that already. Men are competing as women in female athletics, and they're beating them, hands down. The citizens of Idaho will be burdened with the cost of implementing programs and policies for those who seek to ignore science and wield enormous power by vilifying those who raise legitimate scientific facts about biological sex. It is a misuse of administrative power to enact policies that do not benefit the citizens of Idaho, especially biological females. Finally, I'd like to end with a quote from Martina Navratilova. To put the argument at its most basic, a man can decide to be female, take hormones if required by whatever sporting organization is concerned, win everything in sight, and perhaps earn a small fortune, and then reverse his decision and go back to making babies if he so desires. It's insane, and it's cheating. I am happy to address a transgender woman in whatever form she prefers, but I would not be happy to compete against her. It would not be fair. Martina Navratilova.
Hi, I'm Ed McBurney, and I'd like to just add one little factor from experience, in that I worked with a man that at the age of 50 or 52, in that range, decided that he was going to have his name changed. So legally, a judge did change his name, and I'll refer to him as John. And John was a good technician. John, after having the actual surgery done, and after taking the hormones, I would not wish the results on any friend, including him. In the process, he was, the hormones were playing real havoc on his health and welfare. And he was at a point where he was constantly weeping about issues about him. He was in confusion. He could not advance in the expertise that he had developed because he was incapacitated by his emotions. I would not wish this on any friend or man, nor would I wish it on any of our children, to be thinking that they could have such a thing done and have no price paid for that decision. We don't need to add confusion to this confusing world that we already have. We rely upon God to set things right. He has set his word so that we understand there's male and female, and the science backs it up. No matter what research has been developed, they have not found proof that when someone says, I'm another gender, that the chromosomes do not change just because they think so. So for the sake of the welfare and health of the general population, we do not want to go against God's stated goal for us. His will is that we're male and female. And I appreciate the statements that were made today. And I just wanted to add the emphasis that it is not healthy for anyone to change, nor should we encourage it by allowing various avenues. Thank you.
My name is Jeremy Lowry. I'm a resident of Hayden. It's spelled L-O-W-E-R-Y. I'm a Christian. I'm a believer. I'm a minister. But I'm not a theonomist, which is a person who believes that society should be run according to religious laws. So I want to make that statement. I want to address my Christian brothers and sisters that are in here. I've been appreciative of your comments, but I'm running out of time already. So, you know, our founding fathers gave us a country that provided basic foundations and freedoms for all classes of people. And I think that we need to be careful. The Bible says to be examples, let your light shine, and have a walk worthy of the calling to which you're called. So I think that we need to be an example and advocate for morality through non-legislative means in our society. We need to humble ourselves and pray, as the Bible says, and let that be our primary form of activism. I'm here today to express my lack of support. I'm against Rule 160208 because of two reasons primarily. I've got a lot, but I don't have time to say them all. The first of which is I worked many years ago as a data scientist in the field of healthcare informatics. I led a team of data scientists in researching healthcare data to improve healthcare outcomes for various groups of people. The genetic makeup of a male versus a female is very, very important. It's a primary slice in the data that you make to determine very important things in the research of pharmaceuticals and therapies, safe therapies for people, including transgender people. And if we don't have that in the record, so changing this, going back, changing the document, and then putting that document, the original document, in a sealed case that's only obtainable by court order, is going to make it very difficult for medical researchers to get that information and then get actionable research out of that. That's safe. I think it's going to hurt the transgender community. It's going to make it less safe for them as we do that kind of research. Secondly, I'm addressing the culture more broadly. Wow, I'm already down to that. Okay. More broadly addressing the culture, I think that we've got a problem in America right now where we're solving the wrong problems for transgender people. According to the American Psychiatric Association's diagnostic and statistical manual of mental disorders, gender dysphoria is a disorder, and so it's a problem, and we need to treat that. We need to help people. We need to embrace transgender people. We need to love them. They're people with a disorder, and so we need to embrace them. We need to love them, and try to find ways to help them and support them in our culture. But this is on the rise. This is happening. The rate of incidence of this is increasing, particularly in the area of children. And there's been scholarly research. You can go out on PubMed. You can go out and on the internet get scholarly, peer-reviewed studies that say that there's both social factors and physical factors, biological factors. There's research on endocrine disrupting chemicals in our environment, in our food sources, contaminated water. There's also research that supports that a lot of it, particularly in the area of rapid onset gender dysphoria in teenagers, there's evidence that says that there's strong influences, social vectors, social influences that are causing people to experience more symptoms of gender dysphoria. Somebody's friend comes out as transgender, and all of a sudden they come out as transgender. So this is an ongoing thing. Standing up because I'm taking some more. I prepped for 5 minutes. I'm out of breath trying to get it all. But so this is something that's on the increase, and we need to be reasonable in how we do this and support the transgender community through reasonable steps to give them the kind of care that they need. But we shouldn't be just saying, hey, this is a normal version of what existence is supposed to be on this planet vacuum. Thanks.
Steve Tanner.
I'm Steve Tanner. I'm from Ballard County, and there are several issues that I wanted to address. I'm not sure the board is. I got here kind of late, but the court order, in my understanding, was that we were violating the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. At least the state of Idaho was in its use of these rules as far as seeking to change a birth certificate. And reading from the court order is the policy of automatically rejecting application from transgender people is to change the sex listed on their birth certificate. Violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. And I believe there's a lot better ways to fit within the 14th Amendment than by doing it in these ways that are listed in the policy. I think specifically 6 is listed as in consideration for what we're considering today, and the idea that we would automatically, the court order seems to promote that it automatically rejects them, but you can take an application for a change. But if the fact is they're men and they're telling you they're women, the fact is we can still embrace truth in our land and say, well, we'll take your application. But if it doesn't fit with truth, you don't have to approve it. So those are the kind of things that we need to address if we're trying to fulfill the desire of a court order. I believe we failed, or the Attorney General's office failed in not appealing the ruling in the first place and not going forward with that. But that's another issue. I haven't had time to look through all of that, but it looks a little strange to me from what had happened. In a normal adversarial situation, you have two parties that are opposed to one another, and if you have a court case in which you don't have opposed parties, you don't get a clear ruling. And I believe this could be in that area of law. So anyway, that's specific objections. The other thing, one other point was earlier in this, not the part that's being appealed to or discussed today, is the part about changing a father on a birth certificate. It says it requires a court order, a court hearing, and a competent court. Certainly, we may be concerned about a competent court, but the point is that if it requires a court order, it should require a court order to change their sex too.
Yeah, exactly. Alex Barron.
Alex Barron. I'm a resident of Kootenai County. I'd like to discuss this issue from a bit of a legal thing that most people may not realize. One of the biggest oppositions to this issue is how this law was changed. This law was changed because there was a court decision. One man now says that transgenderism is somehow protected by the U.S. Constitution, that judge. Then they made a rule, but that rule was never heard by our representatives. These are the people who are supposed to be responsible to us. So you will never get the people to agree if you attempt to force them into this. But I would like to tell everyone here that Representative John Green and the House were so outraged that this law, this rule was allowed to go into effect that they repealed all rules in Idaho rather than allow this rule to go into effect. That's how that happened. So it would be a good thing to continue to pray for our representatives, and I believe, by the way, that you need to move this up and actually use stuff. So I get the thing. One first thing is transgenderism is not recognized under the Constitution nor the law of Idaho. It is not a protected class. So to try to say that it is wrong. Transgenderism is not recognized under the federal law or the constitutional law. It is not. Race is. We've passed 3 constitutional amendments, a whole bunch of laws, and killed 600,000 people. So the concept is that how are we going to implement this and have one person change and make this a recognized class, one person without any input. I personally believe that if we had been allowed to argue this rule through the court, there may have been a way for them to implement this in a way that didn't anger everyone. Now we've got to cut budgets and strip things because they have the power of the budget. So we are now saying that if you don't cut this department's budget, because obviously they're into too much stuff, then we're going to fire you. Right. So I would like to say that this rule, the way it was done, was completely immoral, unethical, and undemocratic.
You're here.
Paul Crescian. That's everyone on the list. Did anyone say no, that they didn't want to testify, that changed their mind?
Okay, all right, just for the record, this is Duca Disney Spencer, facilitator of this, and we have gone through all the names of people who identified to testify, and we did have some that deferred. We will go to those individuals now, and I believe this gentleman raised his hand first, so you'd come up and take the podium, and please state your name, spelling your last name. Thank you.
My name is Michael Lundy, L-U-N-D-Y. Thanks for having the courage to stand up there and ask for help. Because I'm afraid for the adults. God's word says that it would be better had you not been born should you deceive one of these. In the schools, we've got the Rainbow Club. And instead of helping our children and helping them through those difficult times, we're encouraging them and patting them on the back. And then we're seeing the suicide rates going out of control because it's totally outside of God's realm and what His control is and what He intended for us as human beings, as men and women. Of all the women in here at childbirth, did your doctor say, "Oh my God, come here, look at this. What is it?" Some things are just crazy. And this legislation and all of this stuff that's happening, it doesn't make sense until you understand the underlying agenda of the dark side. And there is a dark side. No, it's called Satan. And we are warned throughout Scripture of his deceiving. And he's the best liar that's ever been created. He's the prince of lies. He uses the truth, but has it for a lying purpose. And we're falling for that. California, hey, thanks for coming up here and standing up and saying we don't want what's down there up here. But I'm afraid for the adults that are supporting this kind of stuff and not reaching down and helping those kids, because that's God's word. I think it's pretty straight up. Thank you. Oh, one other thing my son was telling me this morning, you were talking about the sports thing. That's not just happening. The records are being annihilated. They're not just being beat, they're being annihilated by the males operating as a female in sports. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who deferred that would now like to speak? Please come up and state your name for the record, spelling your last name.
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Hunt, H-U-N-T.
Can you speak up?
And I will talk louder. Elizabeth Hunt, H-U-N-T. I agree with everyone here. I prayed on the way here that you would all say the things that I didn't have time to prepare to write down, and you did. So thank you all, and thank you, God. And so I just want to add, sorry, I'm a little nervous, that on Saturday there's a prayer vigil for Idaho and America going on at Athol Baptist Church from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. Everyone is welcome, and it seems like there's a lot of prayer warriors in this group, and so I just wanted to get the word out. Thank you.
Anyone else who deferred that would like to speak? Is there anyone who would like to speak? We have a few more minutes left. Is there anyone who, one individual back here, please come up and state your name. Spelling your last name. Thank you.
My name is Diane Stockton, S-T-O-C-K-T-O-N. I'm from Sandpoint. Just because this is kind of addressed at the minorities. I was born female, and I was also a tomboy. My mom asked me for my 6th birthday what I wanted. I said I wanted to be a boy. I don't remember what she said, but it was probably something like, that's impossible. I think I got a bike. But I just want to say, you know, if this law were true and passed, you know, my mom may have let me become a boy, and I wouldn't have my beautiful children. My first grandchild's on the way. I can't imagine letting a child choose their gender at such a young age.
We have about 6 minutes left. If there's anyone else who would like to speak and take their 2 minutes. Anyone else?
Can I ask a question?
You can ask. I'm not sure I can answer, but you can ask.
Well, did I understand you early on to say that this was already a federal thing that was pushed upon us?
No, sir. I did not say it. I did not say this is a federal thing.
Okay.
I said it was through a federal court. The first court order was through a federal court.
Okay.
Thank you.
Question?
Yes, this will be my last question. Please go ahead.
Have you attended these sessions in any of the other counties? And if so, what is the reaction in the other counties?
There's only been one other. It was in Lewiston yesterday, and the record will be available.
Well, can't you tell us now whether it leaned in one direction or another?
There was it was very, very similar to today's.
Okay, thank you.
Where can we find the record?
The record. Well, we'll submit the recordings, and all of the written comments will be available through the Department of Health and Welfare Rules Unit. So request that we'll see how we can get those made available to folks.
Okay, so we go to that website to find it? The website for Department of Health and Welfare?
All of the records, all of the comments will not be immediately available right there. There's a lot.
Yeah.
There will probably be a summary of some sort that then is able to come out, and all records are available through public records requests.
Okay.
But there's a lot. I have a question in the back.
This is a question for our representatives, our elected officials here. What is the chance that the administrative rule where it's passed as an entire package is going to be changed, where we can pass department by department so that fewer instances of this kind of abuse of power are mitigated against?
I'm happy to address that, but probably afterwards, because these people have a schedule. But I'll stay as long as anybody wants to have questions about that process.
Thank you, Representative Green. I appreciate that because that would not be part of the record of this hearing. So thank you for that. Any other comments, questions, or representatives? Which thank you for coming. It's great to have you here. So there's a lot of questions that your representatives can help you with. If there are no other questions, I will go ahead and close this meeting. Any last comments that anyone wants to make?
Good job, brave woman.
Thank you for your time.
I'll make the official closing comment. This public hearing started at 9 a.m. and is now closed. The time is 10:57 a.m. The record of this hearing, together with submitted written comments, will be transmitted to the Department's Administrative Rules Unit. Anyone may submit further written comments to the Rules Unit at the Department of Health and Welfare, P.O. Box 83720, Boise, Idaho 83720-0036, or to DHW Rules at dhw.idaho.gov. All written comments must be received by Wednesday, September 25th, 2019, end of the day. And anyone has written comments from today that they would like to give to us, and we will take back to the Rules Unit. You can hand them either to Ryan at the back or to myself, and I've already collected a few from speakers. Thank you all very much. Oh, Susie, one question?
I would like to know why microphones weren't provided so that people could hear.
That's a great point, and I appreciate it. The question was why we didn't provide microphones, and I will assure that we have those. We have recorded the entire thing, and I realize that was not enough for you there in the back of the room, so we will assure that we have microphones. So thank you for that, and thank you all for a very informative and civil discussion this morning. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for what you do.